Hi everyone, my name is Allison Fogg and I'm a teacher here at the Piano Studio. And today I'd like to talk about one of the most important body parts for a pianist. It's not the fingers, although they're important. Today we're going to talk about the wrist. Our wrists can move in different ways. They can move back and forth like this. This is called rotation. And it can also move up and down like this. Notice how loose and flexible it is. Some teachers call this an elastic wrist. You've probably noticed this motion when you see someone play. Let me demonstrate. Now it might seem like we're just showing off or being dramatic, but we're really not. The wrist motion like that serves two important purposes. Number one, it makes you sound more beautiful, so it affects the sound. Number two, it reduces or eliminates tension. And too much tension plus the repetitive motion of practice can lead to injuries, and that is not something that we want, right? So, how does this wrist motion make you sound more beautiful? Well, first, the piano is a percussion instrument, right? So that means that two things hit against each other or something strikes something, and that's how the sound is produced. So when you strike or hit a key, what happens in the inside of the piano is that a hammer, and I don't mean a hammer like hammer and nails, the hammer is curved and covered in felt. The hammer comes up and hits the strings, and the strings vibrate at a certain pitch or frequency. And just like you wouldn't use just your fingers to play a drum, a different percussion instrument, you use your whole arm, the same is true for piano. So you have to use the weight of your arm, and the wrist is the leader in this. Watch how I demonstrate that. So I'm going to start above the key with the wrist lifting, then drop into the key, and then let the wrist lead up and out. So in this way, the wrist is involved in the beginning of the sound and the end of the sound. And that might sound crazy if you haven't heard of that before, but musicians are very concerned with the way that the sound begins and the way it ends. Let me demonstrate that one more time. So you lift your wrist, or you lift with the wrist off the keys, drop into the key, reaching all the way to the bottom, and then lead out with the wrist. So what about the tension part? Well, let me do the opposite. I'm going to put my hand on the keys and I'm going to press down. I'm pressing with a lot of force. And I don't know if you can see, but my wrist is very tight. When I lift, it goes away. It erases that tension. And so if you're playing, sometimes I see students with really stiff wrists and a lot of tension. And I really encourage this motion. So if you are a beginner, you haven't had many lessons, you can practice developing this and channel your inner cat and just do this motion up and down. Notice how my fingertips are touching the top of the piano fall board here. You can also do this on a tabletop. Next, you can do exactly what I did. Choose one finger. I used finger 3 and I played a middle C. As you progress more, you could choose to use 2 fingers at once and play a 5th. I'm going to use a C and a G with each hand. This is in a C position. From there you could progress to an entire chord. Watch the way the wrist is involved in all of this. And if you really want to get fancy, you can do a hand-over-hand triad exercise. So thank you for listening today to all of this great information about our wrists. If you have any more questions, go ahead and ask your private teacher. They would love to help you. And I hope you have a great day. So what about the tension part? Watch what happens when I start on the key and press down. Can you see the tension in my wrist? My wrist is hardly moving, and the tension is there. It doesn't feel comfortable, but watch what happens when I lift my wrist. Poof, that tension's gone. So what about the tension part? Watch what happens when I start on the key and press down. Can you see the tension in my hand? If If the wrist doesn't move, it stays there. As soon as I lift it up, the tension disappears. Now I'm going to let that tension go away. The wrist is the leader. Watch how I show this. The wrist lifts off the keys to prepare, then you drop in with all your weight, and then the wrist leads up and away.